Well, on my phone, it says we're live on Twitter.
We're live. Let me
Yep.
check my phone. Yes, we should be on Twitter. I am actually, we are pushing the show out from my desk. I've got network cable run from my house across the top of the yard out to my office. I just got to get some conduit. I may do conduit. I don't know. Anyway, and bury the cable again. So we're full steam ahead
Hey,
tonight.
hey, we're going to have to test the share screen thing, because at some point we're going to have to figure that out and get that right. But hey, do you know what France, Romania, the United States, Canada, Brazil, and Pakistan, do you know what they all have in common?
Okay, I'll bite. No.
They all are prosecuting or have prosecuted the leading challenger to be the leader of their country right before the election.
Hmm.
The
Okay.
United States, Donald Trump. I mean, they went after Donald Trump endlessly, even quote unquote convicted him. We saw the thing, vote for the felon. Well, now the most latest, Romania, Canada, Pakistan, Brazil, all those have been, that's already happened. But now the most latest, Le Pen in France, you know, they just the elections are coming up, and they've just sentenced her to 2.5 years in prison.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know what? And you know what she wants to do? She wants to expel all the illegal migrants in the country. She wants to have independence from the EU. She doesn't want to go send all the Frenchmen into Ukraine to die. And imagine that. Now she's suddenly brought up on charges and going to be sent to prison for 2.5 years to prevent her from being able to run for the presidency.
Well,
Imagine that.
imagine that. Lawfare. Not warfare, lawfare.
Lawfare. It's
Which
a
they're
common
closely related.
denominator.
Yeah, but closely related to warfare.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's not the subject matter of this show, but I got to tell you, when I'm sitting here and I'm looking at everything I mean, I got a call today. The advocate called and wanted to get an interview and some comments, about the elections and things that have transpired, like particularly in Bossier. And I'm also following politics on a national level. And I see in Wisconsin, they've got, the Supreme Court race up there. And you've got this one liberal. And if it changes, they're going to reapportion and so that they'll give the Democrats control of the House. And, of course, our Congressman Mike Johnson would no longer be the Speaker of the House. And it all comes down to, again, lawfare. It's nonstop, and you and I were having a quote unquote debate before we went live. You and I were, I ain't gonna say arguing, but we don't agree. Whether people believe it or not, they think me and you are just peas and carrots. We don't. We argue. We don't do it as public, but we do disagree on things.
Well, look,
And
I would say that our most of our core beliefs are very much parallel, but we absolutely have disagreements over certain things.
yeah, and I don't think that we completely disagree, but the common denominator here, and it's not to beat up on the lawyers. I mean, it's not that, but we have a problem with our legal system and our justice system. And I think it's more simpler than just saying it's the lawyers. I think it's more simpler than that. I think it's just overall it's politics and it's picking the winners and the losers and the good old boys. But you know, but if you get down to it, it's through lawfare. You're so somebody says who wins the arguments.
Most of the time, they're a draw.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep that one between us, but they're friendly debates. But I mean,
Well, look,
Rex,
look.
you make the contention and you make the argument, and I'll say, and it's a fair argument that this thing dates back to the beginning, to the founding of the country. And, people think that, well, you've got this separation between the judicial, legislative, and the executive. But the problem is, and this is the point I was making, is that you know, you have these judges making decisions that are guiding our policy on the federal, even on the local, within local government, Bossier Parish, Bossier City. But in addition to that, you have lawyers that are essentially making the decisions in your government. I mean, that's effectively the legislative. Literally in Bossier City, you've got lawyers making the decision to spend money and pave parking lots in Bossier City. That is not in accordance with the charter and how, as I appreciate it, is how things are supposed to go. Case in point,
Well,
again, another one, go back to the term limits thing. Shall. Apparently, the council got some advice on, well, you might could, I'm making a joke here, but it may actually be the truth. They gave them advice to say, well, if you want to kind of ignore shall, we can make enough hay that you could ignore it, and no judge, no, there's no appetite to prosecute.
well, but
I mean,
here's the irony. You and I, or anybody watching, we're up to, I don't know, 55, 60, 60, 65, whatever it is, people watching so far, but anybody that watches our show, the average voter, the average citizen, the irony is to do anything about this, you would have to sue them. And they know that. And that is an absolute deterrent. Think about that. Because the DA is certainly not going to do anything about it. The AG's office has done some things in the past, but they don't seem to have an appetite for correcting some of these situations unless it filters through the DA's office first. So the irony is we as average citizens have to file suit, which cost several $100s to initiate. Plus, generally need some sort of attorney on your side, and attorneys are definitely not cheap unless you can convince one to do it pro se. But the irony is, we have to file a lawsuit to stop some of this bad behavior. Or we do like we have done from day one of this show. We've been called lots of things especially over the last week, and it's pretty comical. But you have to do what we've done since day one of this show. You go back and watch the very first show. We promised to show the inside baseball of how politics runs in the good old boy network and all that good stuff. You put them on display, and that tends to start initiating change, as we have seen in the last few years. And so I'll just leave it at that.
that yeah, that is it in a nutshell. And if right out of the gate when you go to court, I mean, let's just say you're at 50-50 when you go to court. I mean, somebody said to me a long time ago, they said, anytime you're going to go to court, I mean, you got a judge involved, you it's a 50-50. That's where you're at. That's where you start. To even get to that 50-50, you're fixing to have to come out of your pocket a buttload just to fight to get to that 50-50. And it's your money.
Hey,
And
here's a question for the audience watching, and I don't want either of us to say anything, and Colonel, you neither. Who knows how much the lawsuit has cost for the term limits? The lawsuit, the Cassie Mae Rogers suit, and all of that. Who knows how much that has cost just for that lawsuit on, let's say, the Bossier Term Limits Coalition side? Anybody care to take a guess? I'm just throwing it out there.
ooh, I don't know the answer to that one. You been doing some homework or something?
Why, of course.
Well, that's good. That's why you are a high achiever. No, I have absolutely no idea.
Well,
I
look,
would
what I'm getting at, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but what I'm getting at is to fight the city council to force them to do what they were supposed to do anyway. It goes back to what we were just talking about and the ironical situation that you have to file a lawsuit and fight that, and how expensive it is, because it's not just the filing fee, which is, again, at minimum, several $100s that you have to come out of pocket. It's paying, albeit a very good attorney, it's all public record out there, albeit a very good attorney, who can guess how much that cost? So I'm just talking about the Cassie May Rogers Bossier term limits suit, which went all the way to the appellate court.
Are you talking about are you talking about the people that sued, or are you talking about what the city
The
spent
people that
fighting
sued,
it?
what the plaintiffs
Okay.
or
Okay, okay,
plaintiffs
okay, okay.
spent. I'm not even including the city. Let's not even include what Richard Ray, Jacobs, any other employees that the city had to, get to find papers or find information. I'm not talking about any of that. The
Gotcha.
other out of state or out of parish lawyers that they hired to help defend that. I'm just talking about the plaintiff, which in this case would be Cassie May Rogers. Just
Uh,
what that cost alone. So
yeah,
that's what I want to see in the comments. What do you
I
think it
would be
costs?
I would be interested to see what people think it costs,
Yes.
because a lot of that cost and a lot of that was borne on the backs of a few people. And no, I don't, on behalf of the public, and I don't think the public really realizes. I don't think they understand. Yeah, I'm not going to say that. And be a little careful. Well, hey, are we going to do the quick break and come back? I mean, you've
Yeah,
built
let's
the
do that.
show. This is all you. So
Well, it's going to
if
be a
it
minimalist show because I don't know if you've seen the notes. There's only a couple
nope,
of bullet points.
I am not even looking at the notes. I'm going to do a Rex tonight, and I'm not even going to look at the notes. So it's going to be
We're
one.
both going to be winging it. This is going to be great.
That's right. It's you steering this baby.
All right, yeah, let's
I
go
mean,
ahead and let's do the countdown, do the break, folks. Y'all know the drill. Go make your popcorn, make your stiff drink. I'm going to try to hit the right button and actually do the countdown tonight. Make sure and tag your friends, share it out, and we'll be right back in about 2.5 to 3 minutes, and we're going to get into our off the cuff analysis of the election. Apparently, John Settle's got some sort of lawsuit that he might be involved in, and what we're going to do moving forward. So we'll talk about that here in just a few minutes. What say you, Mr. Lowry?
let's go ahead and do it. It'll just be like the Titanic. Let's just run it into that iceberg and sink it.
Here we go.
If folks knew a lot of the back office on the politicians that they think walk on water, they would be shocked. There's an old wound from a knife in my back that just is giving me heck lately, and it's just really irritating. So I have to kind of wiggle around a little bit.
And I titled it A Shot Across the Bow of the Good Old Boy.
Just, they feel helpless, they don't feel heard, they have nowhere to turn.
Some Republicans as well believe that government has the answers. And let me tell y'all something. I don't know anything government does well. Nothing.
Aren't there laws that say that you have public meetings so that the public can have accountability of their elected officials?
As a member of the media, I'm very concerned about what I've just heard.
Well, I'm not thinking Star Wars at all. I'm thinking zombie apocalypse. Oh, folks coming from the border down there?
Yeah, it's going to border. It's actually going to Mexico and Bossier.
Doesn't mean they interpret it the same way that I do. For instance, the Second Amendment. I take it very literally. That's been interpreted different ways in the court system all the way up to SCOTUS.
We're still right now combined on both pages in YouTube at 264 people watching. That is amazing, folks. Through conscious, shocking action,
which in turn would enrich sitting city council members Scott Irwin and David Montgomery Jr.
In theory, you know, it's an every week thing. We got to double check and make sure it's like a miracle any of this actually works. This live broadcast is brought to you by the Outdoor News, fishing and outdoors for our area. Acadiana Mortgage, over 25 years in the mortgage business. Pelican Training and Consulting. Reach out to Julie Ferris. Smarter Geek, making technology easier. And folks sharing information and watching out. Now, grab your popcorn and a drink. Here we go. Mr. Lowry, I just want to point out that your wonderful bride says, well, crap, she just got here. She thought the countdown had already passed. No such luck, Miss Carol Lowry. We're forcing everybody to watch that countdown.
Doesn't she know we waited until she got home to do it?
Exactly. Duke sent me the secret signal, and then I hit the button just for you, Kara.
That is hilarious.
Well, let's look at some of the guesses real quick. So Ryan Haygood says 20,000, Judy Stewart 2,500, Alice Boyer at least 100,000. Now remember, Miss Allison, maybe I didn't make it perfectly clear. I was referring to the plaintiff's side legal fees on the Cassie May Rogers suit. If you add in all the attorney's fees from the city and everything, yeah, it's well north of 100K for all of it. Russell says 100K. Haygood updated his to 30K. My mom, who is watching from the YouTube side, says 8 to 10,000. Crockett says, and no revealing the answer, Crockett. He says, best blah, blah, blah we ever spent. Maybe we'll reveal later on. Probably make a post about it. What was actually spent in that, and what we estimate the city's expenditures to be.
Well, that's kind of like leading the horses to the water, and there not being any water.
Well, let's put it this way. I'll give a little teaser. It is north of 10,000.
Yeah, it's north of 10,000, and you know, the colonel says the best we. Well, I don't know who we is, because that gets, again, lawfare and legal stuff. And, you know, it could get to be kind of chicken shit on all of that. Fix your camera, Duke. Move it to your right. You know what? You're good. Val Baker he should be our producer.
I know.
I'm telling you, he should be our producer.
If folks knew what our setups really looked behind the scenes, I need to set up to do that one time.
Yeah, and I want to point out, I want to be back on the mountains. Remember the mountains? Remember originally? I got you
down in the dungeon.
I know you've had me in the dungeon for freaking over 2 years or something now. I mean, I used to be in the mountains and you know, the cool air, and it was quiet. You could hear the wind blowing. You know, it felt heavenly. I mean, I was like, you could play like some Enya music and I would be in my place. People probably like, what the hell is he talking about?
Well, I could probably find some Enya style music, because we do pay for a subscription to Epidemic Sound. It wouldn't be Enya, but because, well, then we get copyright ding, but I could find something similar to that.
I think people,
I probably need to change the background up just a little bit too. I hadn't done that in several months.
I think people probably think that, you know, I'm a Def Leppard kind of guy, AC/DC, that I think they probably think, you know, they probably watch us on the show. They probably think I'm that kind of guy. That's probably what they think. But in reality, I'm an Enigma Enya kind of guy. I am.
I'm learning something new about you tonight, Mr.
That is me. But I have been known to go down the road of some Korn or Tool or Metallica. That, you know, there's an occasion that
a wide eclectic taste. How about that? All right. So I want to share something which I shared on the Facebook page and all that. Look at this number right here, Mr. Lowry. This is
No.
outstanding.
Well, what am I looking at here? I
We're
mean,
looking
because
at the
I was reading a post somebody saying about how irrelevant we were.
well, yeah, I mean, the people that we piss off tend to say that, but this is the last 28 days. This was actually, it's gone up since then because this was a day or two old, but 251,000 views on our content as a whole on just Facebook. That doesn't include YouTube and Twitter. I hadn't even looked up those stats. I mean, Facebook is still king for us, but the importance of this, and I put in the post, it's not about the numbers. It's never been about the numbers for us. I mean, we've said many times, show one, we were happy when a dozen people were watching, and that included our wives and friends. But what this number shows is that people are being engaged around Bossier over politics and the information that we put out there. And we're having lively discussions, even with people that we don't always agree with or don't agree with us.
Well, you know, what was that saying, Rex, that Hitler said that the more you lie, the more people will believe it?
I don't know about that saying, but yeah.
Well, I'm just
Probably.
saying our opponents or the people that are opposed to us, that's the kind of I'm helping y'all, our opponents. I'm helping you. I gave you a plug there to argue against Rex. I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm on your side here trying to help. But that would be the kind of crap that they would say.
Right.
But that's not entirely accurate, because if that were inaccurate, they would actually challenge the content and the things that we put out, but they don't challenge the things
No.
and content that we put out.
I've got a couple of screenshots I'm going to show here in just a minute or two that reiterate the point that you just made. Now, I do want to put this one comment up here. Our good friend Ryan Haygood says, "You're the source for Bossier news." Now, to make sure that everybody who might be new watching the show, haven't watched our content before, we ain't the news. We readily admit, we have said this over and over and over. We present information that we find out about, whether it's through our own digging into stuff, whether it's through news sources, whether it's through Proton Mail, anonymous sources, however. We present that information and then put our spin and bias on it. If you're here to find happy thoughts and all that, I don't know, go do paintings with Bob Robb or whatever that guy's name was, or go watch KTBS and the morning feel good shows. I don't know, but this is not where you're going to find the feel good content necessarily.
Well, I kind of like KTBS, but okay.
Well, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying KTBS doesn't report negative things that happen, crime and
Well,
all
well,
that sort of thing, but
well,
we're
wait a
here.
minute. I got to clarify. Let me say that if I watch news, the mainstream news, I
Yeah.
generally watch KTBS, but I can tell you from political stuff, my experience and what I've been told is that KSLA has the most people that watch. The statistics supposedly bear that out.
Well, look, there's no doubt. I'm sure their news programs get way more viewers than we get, but we're very specific in what we talk about. Our mantra is it has to have a political tie in. We're not ambulance chasers. That ain't happening. I don't think either one of us has the time or the inclination to go, you know, see every little piece of crime or train wreck or whatever that might happen. So we're very specific in the information that we share. And again, we do put our bias on it. Period. Full stop. As a matter of fact, the graphic for today's show, I mean, this has definitely got our spin and our bias on it. Did you happen to notice that, Mr. Lowry?
I did notice it, and if I was correct, I think I zoomed in in a little bit closer than maybe I should have, but I noticed some subtle hidden. It's kind of like I think it was with the painter Atwood, Ron Atwood. You know, he paints these photos and he hides within the photos. He hides, and this is trivia for y'all. Y'all may not look close enough, but the artist Ron Atwood would hide other things than the ducks that he would paint in his paintings. He would hide like a woodpecker or a coon or a squirrel or all of these wild animals within his painting. And you'd have to find, you know, it was how many of those animals could you find hidden within his painting? And it's kind of like the same thing. And that's what it made me think of, Rex, that you're doing the exact same thing. Because if you really zoom in on this and you pay attention, there's some really small things in there that you've, I mean, you're doing some artwork. You're an artist in, and
Yeah,
you,
I'm flashing
this,
some little pointers and some hints to some of it that you may want to check out. It look, it's subliminal messaging. I mean, I don't know. It's not so subliminal, and it's certainly not even subtle. For instance, the Jacobs Jacobs and Ray Foundation Inspection Service. You pay, they play. It's that simple.
but this is politics, and you know, you articulated in one of the shows in the past, and it's so true. Our country has a historical precedence of making fun of politics through journalism and artwork in cartoons,
Yes.
and that's what this is. This is following a legacy. I hate to say the old legacy media, but that is exactly what this is.
Yeah, it's kind of a nod to the old style of political parody and caricatures and all that. You know, it's done in, I hate to say it's done in good spirits because some of this is not really a good thing, but you know, that's what I try to do when I get the little artwork minions fired up to crank these things out is I try to put a little not so subtle hints, subliminal messages in some of these graphics. And yes, it is made to poke fun at our politicians. So if you don't like that, I'm sorry. Not sorry,
Well,
rather.
yeah, I'm not sorry either. And I want to say as a compliment to you, you know, because I follow. I mean, look, I'm one of those political wonks, and unfortunately, I hate it. It's the fact that I was infected with it a long time ago, and it's almost like it's impossible for you to shake. It's like a disease. But I follow politics and things across the country. And to your credit, Rex, and this is a compliment, and other people, by all means, I'm challenge me on my assertion here. If you think I'm wrong, or you can show to me someone else more effective than Rex on this, but I've seen other people try to do the artwork that you're doing on politics, and while you're doing it on a local level, on a small, in the big picture, this is a small picture just in Bossier politics. But I follow politics in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, in Arizona, in Colorado, in Wyoming. I follow these different little places all over the country, and I see some different people trying to do what you're doing, and by far, yours is superior to everybody else's. I mean, that
Well,
is, and I'm not saying that just because you're my friend and you're my co-host and that I like you and we've been around a long time, but your product and what you are doing is superior to everybody else that is out there doing it. And that's important because the people of Bossier City, you should recognize, and I'm not asking you to kiss his ass, but what I'm saying is that you're getting something that everybody else in the country is not getting. What you're getting right here is top shelf. It is,
wow.
and that's my compliment to you, Rex.
I
You're
think
always complimenting me, but
I
it's
I
about
think
time you
that
got that compliment.
might be the best compliment I've ever received in lieu of the show. So thank you. And look, it's there's no secret to the way that I'm doing it. I've got some little minions that help me. And then I do a little Photoshop work on that and just produce these out. And literally the idea usually comes to me the day of or maybe the day before the show. And so anyway, I hope that everybody enjoys them. I hope that our politicians get a little heartburn over them because that's what they're intended to do.
Yep. All right. So lead
So,
us down this road of where we need to go from here.
all right.
'Cause I don't
So,
know.
well, I don't know either. So, we're going to get to the election analysis here shortly, but I want to go ahead and share a few things, and I think this will lead us into the election analysis. So, let me go ahead and let me change screens here, and give me just a second. Let me put up a couple of screenshots here. So, obviously, some of the content that we've been putting out, some friends of these politicians are not exactly favorable to it. So this particular screenshot is from the Friends of Cypress Black Bayou Facebook group, and I shared out some of the content there. And Russ Aycock says the smear campaign against Vince was wrong by everyone involved. Almost worked, but almost is tough to measure because almost doesn't count. And so then we go down. Dawn Fausto says all facts, no smear. Vince flip flop. Miss Jerry Castellani says 100% she did not smear Mr. Maggio by his own voting record and public display of actions, so on and so forth. And then I said, well, wait a minute. Or Russ says, let me back up. Russ commenting back says, jail time, mafia, buying lunches for votes, laundering money through his store. You may not have done it personally, but you didn't stop it. Can't wait to see how all this unfolds. Of course, my snide response was, hey, Russ, wait a minute. You're saying he was laundering money through his store and buying lunches for votes? How the hell, Duke, did we miss that? I mean, do you I don't remember. We've said a lot of things. I don't remember that us saying that Vince was laundering money through a store. I mean, Russ is cluing us into something here that we didn't know about. Was he buying lunches for votes other than the barbecue?
Well, I mean, look, I I know Russ Aycock, and I like Russ. I
Yeah.
mean, Russ is someone. I mean, just like Vince, I would say Vince has been a friend. We have come to an impasse where I disagree with Vince. His service as a councilman in Bossier City, I don't think served his district effectively. I think it served, other people, but I don't think it served the people of that district. So we come to a crossroads. And like my friend Russ Aycock, I disagree with him there to the points that he's alleging. Rex, I never recall us ever, uh, you know, throughout the course of this campaign, I want to say maybe we made a joke about that. He, I recall, I'm thinking about things that I have heard and things that people have said and things that people have alleged along the route of this thing. Why is it that people would say to me, y'all need to be careful because you could get hurt?
Right.
There's people that end up in body bags or end up buried over things like this. Why is it that why is it that I heard things like that countlessly? Why is it that, you know, that I heard this thing about decisions are made in a freezer? Oh, I know
I mean,
because
that didn't start with us, folks. That started
no,
somewhere else.
I mean, the guy you're defending on said something in a council meeting that all the mayors were decided upon who they were going to be in the freezer of a store. And when you say things like that, and there's already a perception out there, how do you think that people are going to conclude anything else?
Right.
How
Well,
is that?
well, wait a minute. Now, to be fair, we literally played the audio recording of Colonel Crockett's encounter with Vince over Colonel Crockett literally returning some of Vince's signs rather than throwing them in the trash as the homeowners wanted to do. And you heard Vince in his own words and how he reacted to that. There was a famous boy phrase. I mean, he must have said boy half a dozen times or whatever. So, look, Ryan Haygood says in the comments, you showed the barbecue trailer. There is zero doubt there was a barbecue trailer with a Vince Maggio sign and a Lee Jeter sign next to it to promote barbecue.
Yeah, and we had messages from people in the community that sent us messages that said that on that first Saturday of early voting, and I'm sorry to the pro Vince Maggio people, y'all can be mad at us for putting it out there. And it ain't even got to be the Vince Maggio people. I mean, they're not the only people that get mad at us. There's a ton of people that get mad at us. We even got messages about this concrete thing that the city's paying for Bossier Power Equipment and Scott's Audio that they're mad at us for talking about it.
Well,
That
look, people.
they're good people and they had nothing to do with it. Well, you know what? I agree with that.
I
I
agree
agree with that.
100%.
Charlie is the greatest of person. I have spent money with Charlie. I've spent money with Scott, and I have full intentions of spending money with both Charlie at Bossier Power Equipment and with Scott for work. I have full intentions of continuing to do business with them, but it doesn't change the fact that the business that has transpired there, like it or not, it is a reality, it is a fact, and because we like somebody or not, that should not delineate whether we decide to talk about it or not.
Well,
I'm sorry.
here's the tie-in. Again, our mantra from day one is that the stuff we talk about has to have some sort of political tie-in. Guess what? The parking lots were paid for with public tax dollars, and there is a fiasco at best um, going on right now. We didn't bring it up. The city council, and to his credit, Brian Hammond specifically brought this issue up. We just played what they said and then showed some pictures of our public tax dollars at work on those private driveways. We even said
But
in previous shows it was nothing against the business. Don't blame them for taking advantage of the situation.
you're damn right.
But that's it. It's a fact. Look, if they were paying for their own driveway to be redone and parking lots to be
But
redone, we wouldn't care.
but Rex, here's the thing. People are saying somehow the people that are bringing to the public's attention these types of things, and I got to tell you, this council race, this District 5 council race, if the timing were a little bit different, I have no doubt that a lot of the votes that Vince Maggio got, he would not have gotten as a result of this. He got lucky in this deal.
Oh, he
But
got really lucky.
he got really lucky. But the reality is, I mean, if you're one of these people that you're sitting here saying that everything shouldn't be transparent because you like this person or that person, I mean, you're part of the problem. I
Right.
mean,
Well, look,
it,
let me
it
well, go ahead. Sorry.
well, I'm just saying, all of these folk, about there's people griping about us making points about the issues regarding, this race. There's people griping about issues being raised regarding this concrete parking lot, all because you're touching on people that you personally like, and we generally refer to it as the sacred cows. Everybody has a sacred cow.
Right.
But if your sacred cow has no varnish on it, if it's all shiny and there's no varnish, then there should not be any criticism. But here's the rub. The rub is from day one, we've raised every issue. Have we done it nefariously? Have we done it and everybody else done it nefariously? No, it has been in the light of day, in front of God and the world, and we have offered endlessly to all of you who say that, oh, you're playing dirty, or oh, you're backstabbing, or oh, you're dirty politics. You have the floor.
Yeah.
You are fully welcome to step forward, challenge, and say that's not true. Debate and profess your side of the story out here in public. But you know what? Aaron McCarty and Mike, they called Vince out. They said, come on our show and talk about it. And to all of you Vince defenders, crickets.
Yeah.
Crickets. Why
Where's
is
Vince?
that? Why
it's like
is that?
instead of where in the world is Carmen Sandiego, where in Bossier City is Vince, other than sitting like a wallflower at a city council meeting? And look, let me just get on my soapbox for a minute. I have no intentions of cutting Vince any slack as a city councilman. Now, if he wants to actually listen to what just happened at the election this past weekend, and we'll get to the numbers, if he wants to listen to the mandate that was handed to him, and I would actually call it a mandate, and I'll explain that later, then I'll back off of him. If he wants to actually do his job as a city councilman for his district, instead of just sitting there like a wallflower doing Montgomery's bidding, who will be out of there in July. Look, this is the response that I put up to Russ. Said, smear campaign, huh? If Vince's repeated votes against over 3,000 voters in Bossier City and lack of action on the city council for his own district count, then we're guilty as charged. And what about his lack of even a single comment? Not one comment did he make over the parking lot fiasco at the last meeting, which is unfolding in his own district. It took Brian Hammonds in District 1 to bring up the issue of how was this parking lot, how was the money spent or approved for this parking lot because it didn't go through the council. Why didn't Vince bring that up? Did Vince not spend 20 times the money on his campaign and only won, and I'm kind of giving it away a little bit, but only won by 38 votes? What about Jeff Sato? Jeff's in the comments. Is Jeff part of this alleged smear campaign? Was Vince not part of the recalcitrant 5 as spelled out in a legal proceeding? And was he not one of the 5 councilmen who may have committed malfeasance? That's not us saying that. That's the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. Or are they part of the smear campaign too? Maybe, just maybe, the smearing is actually by Vince supporters to cover up his ineptness as a councilman. Drop the mic.
Well, we could go so much further. And by all means, the people supporting all of that and the people getting all out there. I mean, you're talking about a smear campaign. What about the personal whisper campaigns about steering people to go to the courthouse to look up divorce records and court proceedings regarding divorces and personal stuff regarding people? Do all of you Vince supporters, do y'all want to talk about that? Do you want to know about those smear campaigns? I mean, we can certainly talk about all of those if you would like. If you want to talk about the whisper campaigns and the smear campaigns that that side of the fence was doing. And while I'm at it, Rex, there is a little bit of house cleaning that we do need to do.
All right.
So in the last show, and I was a little passionate about it, I would admit, but there was a little bit that sudden muffle may be because my system screwed up and it's not going to be correct.
Yeah, I mean it's okay. It sounds okay. It's just slightly muffled compared to what it was at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, that mic thing is screwed up now.
Okay. Well, you're fine. I
Anyway,
mean, everybody can still hear the audio fine.
okay. So last show, we got to talking about, and again, all of you Maggio people and the Maggio supporters and all of that, y'all are quick to talk about smears and stuff. So when we were talking about at the start of our show, we had Chris with LeCag. We know how the constitutional amendments went out. Chris and LeCag, they ended up winning out. All the constitutional amendments were defeated. And I'm going to tell you, Rex, Kara says, sounds fine, talking slow, LOL. Yep, okay. It's been a long day, oh wife of mine. I have talked more already today than I care to admit. In fact, that's been the way it's been for the past 2 days. I feel like I'm almost about to lose my voice. I should write a book. I should write a book. Would anybody buy it? No, because I think it would be boring.
How Duke
Anyway,
lost his voice.
Yeah. So, a lot of people last show, there was some people got a message and some people took offense. They didn't take offense. They just like, okay, look, you said something that wasn't quite right. So before, we had Chris at the beginning, a lot of times we will, y'all know it already, we bait you. I hate to say it, but I'm going to admit it. We bait you. We tell you something so that you'll watch the show. And when we get to it, then we give it to you. But you got to listen to Rex drone on about some other bull crap. I mean, it's his idea. That's why we do it. But anyway, but we bait you. Well, so I baited you and I said something. Well, the way that it was perceived was that someone perceived that I was alleging that the Republican women of Bossier was out putting signs up and supporting a Democrat against the Republicans. And that was entirely not what I was meaning to convey, because I can tell you for a fact the Republican Women of Bossier are an organization that is loyal to the Republican cause. And I can tell you that and I will say this as the chairman of the Bossier Parish Republican Executive Committee, and I'm crossing a Rubicon here that I shouldn't cross. But what I can tell you is that when the Bossier Parish Republican Executive Committee is the governing body of the Republican Party in Bossier Parish. Republican women organizations are the activists. They're the activists of the Republican Party. And I can tell you that when called upon, they are always front and center and they will jump through hoops to get it done. And they come through in this election big time, and they did that. And in no way did I mean to suggest that the Republican women of Bossier were, yes, this is a retraction, if you could say that. No way was I meaning to suggest that the Republican women of Bossier were out supporting a Democrat against two Republicans in the at-large via Lee Jeter. What I was meaning, and I eventually clarified in the comments later on in the show, was the fact that we had received tips and information from multiple sources that people involved with the Maggio campaign were out putting Lee Jeter signs up in opposition to the two Republican at-large candidates, Cochran and Smith. And, that ended up being clarified later. So Jim Whitman was a part of that. Robert Berry was a part of that, and Rusty Lombardino was a part of that. That was the information that we had. Now, is it 100% true? I wasn't there. I can't say that. But I have witnesses that say that it was true. So if the Maggio campaign, who they were acting and have been an integral part of, if they want to dispute that they didn't do that, then by all means, they're free to come and say that we're liars and say that that's not true. If Jim Whitman, Bossier City Marshal Jim Whitman, wants to say that he was not a part of putting up signs for a Democrat against two Republicans, you know what? I'm open to that debate. By all means, Jim, you have an open invitation. All of them.
Yeah.
So
look, we've
if
given
that's,
open
if that's a lie, that's a lie. I want to hear it.
Well, we say it ad nauseum. They're all invited to come on the show and dispute anything that we claim or dispute our opinions. They all have our phone numbers. It's not like we're hard to find or top secret. And honestly, I went back and listened. I think it was around the 3-minute mark or whatever of the last show, and listened to that. And I have to say, going back and listening to it, I understood what you meant, but the way that you said it, I can see where it was portrayed that all the Republican women were, making up Jeter signs at the meeting and going to put them out. And so I'm glad to see you issue that retraction or clarification or whatever, because that is not how you meant it. And I knew what you meant by it, that some of the people attending that meeting were the very ones who had been accused of supporting Jeter and putting up signs, not the entire Republican women of Bossier as a whole.
And that was what got my dander up, is the fact that some of these same people are out there right there. And look, I get along with a lot of Democrats. I will admittedly tell you, I helped Deborah Ross.
Yeah.
And she is a Democrat, but there was no Republican in the race.
Right.
There is no Republican in the race. That's a totally different deal. But when you've got supposed Republicans, helping a Democrat against Republican candidates, I'm sorry, that's a foul. That is a foul. And then they're going to turn around and go to Republican women and be sitting there and cheerleading as if they're this Trump Republican people. No. You can't have your cake and eat it too. But you know what it is, Rex? What it is why they're not the Republican women. The Republican women, they've done nothing, absolutely zero wrong. But the other people, you know why they're mad about it? They're mad about it because they're being called out. And
right.
when I got a call from the Advocate. They wanted to ask some questions about the elections.
Sure.
And you know what I told them? This is what I told them. They asked about this election cycle. What do you think the deal is in Bossier? Why did things go the way it is? I said, well, to my recollection, this is the first election where issues and positions of the candidates have been challenged publicly. And you think about it, and I challenge any of you in the comments. Do you recall an election where voting records or the issues, rather than just a straight popularity contest, were the deciding issues within an election cycle for city government in Bossier City?
It'd be hard pressed to actually recall one, at least not in my. It's hard for me to recall one in my dealings with the politics of Bossier. Granted, I'm not originally from Bossier, blah blah blah, and all that good story, but yeah, for the most part, it's a name recognition. It's literally one of the reasons for that term limits, and one of the advantages that incumbents, especially long-term incumbents have is the name recognition, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent. And look, let's be honest, folks. We all see how many of the city council meetings, how many of the police jury meetings, school board meetings too. There are a few people there here and there, but a lot of times there are a lot of empty seats. And with our show and what the content that we put out, as well as folks like Wes Marriott's, into the political game, Jeff Sadow posts stuff, John Settle publishes articles and all that. What we're trying to do is elevate all that content so people will pay attention and get it away from just this strict popularity name recognition contest. And I hope and think we're doing a pretty good job at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking at two comments. I mean, Ruth Pope Johnson for City Council campaign, and I commend Ruth. Look, I'm going to tell you, it's no secret. People know. Maybe everybody doesn't know, and the election is over, and so it doesn't matter now. Um, Ruth asked me to help her, and I did. I wasn't her campaign manager, but she asked for help, and I helped her. She was willing to work. I told her what she needed to do, what I thought she needed to do. Granted, you've got a David and Goliath situation, what it was going to take for her to win. And I identified the people that she needed to talk to, the voters she needed to meet, and she was a trooper and she went through. Well, there's a whole lot more could be said there, and we could go through that. But that, and to the Ruth Pope Johnson for City Council, they make the point. They did a barbecue together, Maggio and Jeter, signs on the trailer. That's a fact. We showed that. And we had messages via Proton Mail that said that they were offering starting on the day of early voting, free barbecue to people if you came and brought your little sticker. We reported that. Is that a lie? I don't know if it's a lie or not. But what I do know is that we had several reports to us of that. We put it out here. And while the Maggio people, y'all don't appreciate the fact that we put it out there because you felt that it would hurt you, or that doesn't make it untrue. You had last Tuesday to come on this show. It's an open policy to come on and say that's not true. You could have done that, but you didn't do that. Why did you not do that? You still have the opportunity to come on and say that's not true. We didn't do anything of that case. I mean, because we don't 100% know that you did, but what we do know is that we got messages that you did. We got pictures sent to us that you did. I rode down there, and literally the trailer, I bet you could go ride down there and see the trailer right now still sitting there.
Well, look,
the signs.
I can tell you why I do. The whole reason. We're guilty. We're guilty about getting on here and talking mad stuff. I'll just put it the nice way. You know how I know? Because our lively commenter and detractor, Sherry Williams, in response to some comments on one of the posts, says, she was talking to Ryan Haygood, she says, I mean, you get on here and talk mad shit about shit you know nothing about. And then, so we responded, well, we definitely are interested in this mad stuff we know nothing about. Indulge us. In other words, all right, so tell us what stuff you're talking about. And she said, well, you are already. You stir the pot every day. Now have a good day. Well, tell us something we don't know. We do stir the pot every single Tuesday, and a lot of the other posts. So I said, well, no kidding, we readily admit stirring the pot with information about a lot of happenings in Bossier, such as the current parking lot situation, among other things. If that's your definition of mad stuff, then we are guilty as charged. Now grace us with your details on about the stuff you know nothing about. And her response, have a good day, bully. She used the B word. That's all we
Well,
do.
it's not, it's bullying if the opposition has no way to object or fight. And that's
Right.
not true. You do have the ability to object and fight because you can come on and you can debate and you can argue that the facts that or the things that we're alleging are not true. And you can provide evidence to say or show that that's not true. But for some reason, just like when Mike and Aaron McCarty on 710 Keel wanted Vince to come on, why is it that Vince is the stealth candidate? Why is it that the only public appearance or response or anything that he made publicly was when he was provided the questions, from, I think it was the Chamber of Commerce, well ahead of time in the Bossier Press, and given a week to respond to the questions? Why is it that that's the only public thing that you get?
Right.
Why is it? Why is that?
Look,
I mean,
here's the deal, and I think I can speak for both of us. We don't suffer fools very long.
no.
And so if you're going to accuse us of, whatever, and again, there are a lot of times we do inject our bias and opinions, but if you want to debate us on the facts, bring the receipts, as the cool kids say these days. Just like I asked her here, okay, well, give us the details. Indulge us. And what do we get? Crickets, and then the B word, the bully word that is so cliche now it literally has no meaning.
So, so to all the Sherry Williams, bullies and all that stuff. Well, Sherry, do you need a fence? I mean, I want to encourage you to call the fence company that uses a number paid for by the city marshal's office, the Whitman's office. Call them. Paid for by the city.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's still active currently right now at this moment, but it was the last time I checked. I mean, I guess that's cool with you. I guess you don't have a problem with city or taxpayer resources being used for private purposes. We published that on the show. That was by way of the Whitmans. And, I guess that's what you're defending. And we're bullying that we shouldn't be touching those sacred cows. I mean, where does this end, and where does, just like the asshat that was standing behind me in the car holding a video camera trying to prevent me and to deter and from talking to a voter that happened to be a family member of his. I mean, he needed a Maggio vote on the council for the Chasing Aces deal. Right. I mean, but it's funny how all these coincidences are all people that have a monetary interest in local government. It's funny how that happens.
Imagine that.
And you don't have any problems with all that, and you don't want to talk about those things. Why is that? Yeah. Sherry Williams yourself, not to beat up on you, you're probably a fine person. I think on the surface, you're defending your dad, and I appreciate that, and I respect that. And I got to tell you, I appreciate and respect the years of service that your dad has given. I considered him a friend. And I think that I know for a fact in years past, I know for a fact your dad did some good things. I know that. I was a part of it. I spent time with him, and I will say that I worked with him where he did good things. But the truth is he stayed around a little bit too long, and he needed to get out of it, and it got to a point to where he was being taken advantage of. That is the cold, hard, raw truth. That is it. And you can disagree with me, You can hate me for saying that, but at the end of the day, I have to be honest with myself. And at the end of my days, I'm going to have to meet my maker. And either I'm lying or I'm telling the truth. And that's the freaking truth. And you can call me whatever you want. You know it's true, and I know it's true too.
Look, it's hard to argue with that little factoid at all. And yes, that is Bubba Don's daughter, who we're referring to, the Sherry Williams. And look, you're right. I get it. The people who support Vince or support whatever candidate, they want to defend their choice. I mean, that's just the way it is, and you can't really blame somebody for that. But if you're going to accuse us of, basically not stating facts or whatever, be prepared to defend with your own set of facts to counter us, or come on the show. I mean, it's that simple. All right.
I mean, I don't think, maybe we come across as being okay. I can't say that because the opposing side would say, "Oh yeah, y'all are definitely assholes." Just like George Carlin said, you can tell how much or how big of an asshole somebody is by the distance they are away from you. We're on the internet, so we're a long way away, so that makes us big assholes. But I'm just saying, if you are so confident in your position that what we're saying is wrong, I mean, I can promise you we're not going to be rude to you if you want to come on and challenge us and say, I mean, it's like we're begging every show for somebody to come on here and tell us where we're wrong, but nobody ever takes us up on it. We're offering to you. We've not paid for this platform. We've not spent money to promote this. There's not 100 and whatever the number is. It's over 100 people that are watching this. We've not paid for these people to be here, but we're offering to you if you want to come on here. And we say, I've said this before. I said Juliana, and I actually say Juliana and I raise her name because I know she falls into all of that clique. I'm not saying it to be disparaging when I say her name. I say it because I respect her as a debater, because I have personally debated her at the Republican, committee in Bossier. She is a worthy opponent. She is a trained trial lawyer, and I respect debating her. I say that with all intents and purposes. And I don't care who you put up, but if you want somebody to, defend your position and your argument and to point, I don't care who it is. It doesn't have to be Vince. Put your best foot forward. Put them forward. If you want to send Richard Ray, Charles Jacobs, that's fine. We will be respectful to them, and they can articulate your position and say where we're wrong. You know what? The truth of the matter is, we could be wrong. You actually could. You think you can't convince me? You maybe could convince me that I'm wrong. I mean, there is that possibility.
In this parking lot situation, come on, Jacobs, you're welcome on here. Richard Ray, you're welcome on here. Come on here and tell us where us, Brian Hammonds, the rest of the council, and our viewers are wrong. Look, maybe y'all have full intentions of going after the contractor and the insurance company and getting the city reimbursed. Maybe there is some loophole in the charter or some ordinance that was passed that allowed y'all, instead of being attorneys, city attorneys, to be city inspectors and construction inspectors or whatever. Maybe there's some loophole somewhere that we missed. Maybe so. Come on and tell us. It's that simple.
Are you talking about the fist fight between Charles Jacobs and Brian Hammonds in the parking lot after the last council meeting? Is that what you're talking about?
Wait. This is news to me. Breaking news.
Okay. Allegedly, after the last council meeting that Brian Hammonds and, because Brian Hammonds called out on this concrete deal, right?
Okay.
But allegedly, after the meeting was over, Brian Hammonds and Charles Jacobs were like about to throw blows in the parking lot.
Really?
And the almighty Zamboni peacemaker broke it up.
You have to be kidding me.
I'm kidding you not. I mean, he was a wrestler, I think, at Airline or something or other. I mean, I don't get that because he should have said, all right, go, and started the clock, and let's see which one of them wins. But he didn't do that. He is allegedly with the one that was breaking them up because they were about to throw blows in the parking lot. And look, just so you know, I had somebody sitting in a car in the parking lot. And
okay.
And they witnessed the whole thing. But today I had somebody else text me, did you know? Yeah, I knew because I had somebody sitting in the parking lot. So we've got two. So when the people start saying that we're lying and we're just spewing crap out there, I've got it confirmed by multiple sources. But yeah.
Very interesting. That I did not know.
My bet's on Hammonds, period. Hammond's going to take him down. I mean,
yeah, I should imagine so. I think that goes without saying. All right, and somehow I've lost our logos. Give me just a second. Let me see if I can fix this. Somehow I've managed to lose our wonderful logos. And I don't really know how.
So somebody messaged me and they said, preach. They said they appreciated, basically they were advocating that they appreciated the hard hitting commentary. But you know what? What does that get us?
Well,
what really does that get us other than hated more in Bossier? It gives us nothing.
That is very true.
At the end of, my sound there. At the end of the day, it don't get us a damn thing except for more enemies, more people hating us. So I got to tell you, why do we do it? Why don't we just let somebody else do it, Rex?
Yeah, maybe.
Because maybe Hal, maybe we should just defer it all to Hal, because Hal is, responsible for changing everything in Bossier. It's all on him. He's the one that got everybody in Bossier all stirred up. I mean, we should just let Hal have it all, and we should just do outdoor news.
To me, that would look, especially the last month or two after these political races and all the time and brain cells and energy that we've all spent, lots of people, not just you and I, lots of people. I'm just ready to go fishing. Maybe we should do it's April Fool's Day. Maybe our April Fool's joke should be that this is the last show. And maybe it's not an April Fool's joke.
Maybe that you're right. I mean, because I got to tell you, the cost to me has been a lot. And I'm not saying that I did it I didn't do it for any other reason, but it has been at a cost. And I don't know how much more I have to give. I really don't. I say that in all sincerity.
Yeah. Look, I don't know. I mean, we've been doing this since 2020. So we're into our 5th year, I think, if my math is correct. We have done 250 plus shows when you count Louisiana Watch and all that, well north of 300 shows. I mean, have we made a dent? I mean, what do you folks think? Because it's not just Duke and I. I mean, we could sit here and just talk to each other on the phone about all this stuff without you folks actually out there listening, agreeing or disagreeing with us, commenting and doing all the things, reaching out to your council person or your police juror or your school board member and doing all those things, your local politicians, your state politicians. Without all of y'all, Bossier Watch is just me and Duke sitting here talking to each other. And is it really making a difference? I mean, because there are those that, want to take credit where it's maybe not due. But I'll say this. Let me go over the history again briefly. So the inspiration for the Bossier Watch started back in the days when I was on the Republican PEC. We had gotten together, several of us, including Jason Brown, and talked about doing a podcast. And then we never really got around to it. You and I were big fans of Jim Wells and the My Bossier blog and the way that he handled the politics of the day, as it were. Big fans of that and that format. We just took that format and pretty much applied it to the video delivery mechanism through Facebook and now YouTube and X and Twitter and all that. I mean, look, Jim allowed anonymous comments. We don't really allow anonymous comments because your name has to show up in Facebook or your YouTube handle. But we do have Proton Mail. Honestly, that's why I set up the Proton Mail account, is because I wanted people to be able to share information like they shared information anonymously to the My Bossier blog that Jim Wells had started. And so we set up the Proton Mail account. But anyway, so what I'm getting at is that's the origins of this show. Yes, we do read Jeff Sadow's blog. Yes, we even do or used to read Howell's blog, except now we're dead to him still, I guess. I don't know. But look, other people have risen up as well. Our good friend Wes Marriott is covering a lot of political stuff with Sobo Live.
Hal is dead to me because at the end of the day, everything, it's about your why. Our why was never about making money. Our why was never about making a profit. Our why still to this day is not about, it's not about enriching ourselves. Our why is about bettering our community and making things better. Some people, their why is about making $1. That's it. That's why they do what they do. We never did that. And here we are, and we're the ones that have sacrificed, and other people are going to, okay, I'm going to stop because my blood pressure is getting up. I'm getting a pulse in my face. So, yeah, I'm going to stop. You carry on.
Remember, live, no take back. So we're getting some pretty good comments. And look, this is not, I'm not saying all this and we're not going on this little tangent here just to, for self-gratification. That's really not it. Like Duke was kind of alluding to, the reason we put this information out there and the reason Duke and I started doing this in the beginning was literally to show, like we said, the inside baseball and give a completely different perspective rather than the normal, typical news. It's the stuff that everybody talks about in political circles before the meetings or after the meetings. We're just putting it on full display.
Case in freaking point. Case in freaking point. Somebody made a claim and said they were critical, saying that the assert. I mean, it may have been the guy you had earlier. The assertion about Vince Maggio and the mafia. Well, you know what? Okay, I get that, but then if you're saying that, okay, that's an unfair claim to make. I don't think that we ever made that assertion. We never said that or accused that or said that. I think we made a joke based on what people said, that, there were assertions that people said that Vince was the wannabe mafia. I mean, because I have heard that. But then if you live in Bossier, the reality is people have said for years and said, you better be careful what you say. You better be careful. Every freaking week of this campaign against Vince, why is it that people are sending messages saying you better be careful? Why are you getting that warning? Why is people warning us saying you better be careful? What should I be careful about? Why? What is it that you have to fear?
Well, here's the thing.
Why would you say that?
Look, and we've got a pretty big platform here, and we have a lot of folks watching us, and that makes the platform even bigger. So, fortunately, we have a way to fight back digitally and by making our voices pretty loud in the Bossier area. But I'll also say this, and one of the reasons you and I get along so well, at our, we do have our differences of opinion, but our core beliefs are the same. And, we always joke about our barroom fight analogy. And the deal is, just so I'll share a little bit inside baseball. The deal is, if we were in the parking lot and somehow got into a barroom fight, who's going to be standing in the circle with us throwing the punches, and who's going to be standing around the outside egging it all on? And you and I will stand in the middle and throw the punches where they need to be thrown.
We always stand in the middle, but too many times we're standing by ourselves. Where is the people that are standing with us? Just today, within the last 4 to 5 to 6 hours, I was faced with having to come to a decision and make a decision that ended up the burden fell on my shoulders. And again, it was me carrying the water. But where's all the help? Where's everybody else? Right. And, it gets old. I don't know. This sounded winding. We need to change the subject.
We can call it the Bossier Wine Show.
Yeah, the Bossier Wine Show. We need to change the subject, move on, because that ain't appealing to nobody. But I got to tell you, I'm just saying it pisses me off because not enough people. I will say this election, I'm happy that the people of Bossier they showed that they were paying attention. There's some other conclusions about this election. I can tell you that Vince Maggio wouldn't be elected. He needs to count his lucky stars that the constitutional amendments were on the ballot, because if they were not on the ballot, you would not be elected.
Yeah.
Bottom line, you wouldn't be in there.
Yeah.
And you can say whatever you want. I hope and pray that you got you a heaping dose of humble pie, but somehow or another, I've talked to some people that are very close friends of yours, and they told me that you got no humble pie. You didn't get a damn bit of it out of this.
Well, let's look at the election results and see why, because I agree with you 100%. Let's see why you're saying that. So, folks, if you don't know how to find the election results, you can go to the Secretary of State's website or govote.com. It'll redirect you to the Secretary of State's website. You click on this View Election Results in the red letters up there. And here we the crazy whiny douche. Yeah. Hey, I started whining first, so I guess I'm guilty.
I don't give a crap. Jeff Sadow, you can go partner up with Bubba. That's fine. I don't care.
All right, so let's take a look. So I chose Bossier Parish, and choose, of course, Saturday, March 29th in the drop down. So council at large race, I'm just going to run down through these pretty quick, and we'll come back to the District 5 race. Obviously, Creighton got 34% of the at-large. Lee Jeter only got 28%. Chris Smith got 37%. Lee Jeter out. You can take your barbecue trailer to the house. Councilman District 2, Miss Deborah Ross, the Democrat in the race, who we highly supported because she supports term limits and she's a wonderful lady and did a lot for the term limits effort. And so we do have common ground with her. Even though she's a Democrat, we're Republicans. Hey, we can still find common ground. She absolutely trounced Jeff Darby 69% to 31%. That's a trouncing.
Well, yeah, let's talk about that one. Before we talk about Greg Bell and Duke Lowry's whining, let's talk about that. So, You know what happened in that race? Part of what happened in that race, there were a couple of things.
Okay.
Jeff Darby was found himself in the position to where he was not able to rely on the tried and true independent affiliation splitting the vote.
Wow.
He was counting on being able to get that Republican vote. But you know what? An interesting thing happened. The Republican Party took a position in that race. And the Republican Party, and there's Republicans in that district, made sure that the Republicans in that district were informed on that race. And you know what I think happened? I think Jeff Darby didn't get to take advantage of the Republican votes by being an independent when he really wasn't an independent.
I think you're correct. Remember, I got in hot water for calling him a Democrat in one of our past shows. Had to come back and correct the record that he is a registered independent, but we all know the truth of that deal. I mean, after all, remember, it was Jeff Darby who wanted to have the immigrants come to Bossier with welcoming arms. Not that we don't welcome legal immigrants, but still.
And on a larger scale, look, I had that interview with the Advocate today, and they were kind of talking about it, and I said, look, like it or not, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, the God's honest truth is Republicans and Democrats believe in more. They're on the same page on more things than what people think. They really are.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's issues, super conservative Republicans when it comes to abortion. Obviously, you're not going to agree with the most extreme leftists, but on a lot of issues, especially when it comes to illegal immigration, a lot of Democrats, a majority of Democrats and Republicans, they're on the same page on that. They're not in opposition on that. Right. And taxes, I got to tell you, they're not in opposition to that. Neither one of them want taxes. And in this case, you had term limits. And in that district, you had a guy who was trying to split the sheets and say, oh, I'm independent. That makes me part Republican, part Democrat. And he's done it for the past 30 years. He wasn't able to get away with it this time. You had a Democrat that crossed over, was full bore, 100%, tried and true, term limits. And you know what? She earned the Republican support. That support was conveyed to the Republicans in that district. And you know what? She wiped the floor with that guy.
Yes.
She wiped the floor with him.
Yes.
Look at what we can do when we are able to work out our differences and come to an amicable agreement on how government should function. Look what just happened.
Yeah. And not just there, let's go down to the District 3 race where Cliff Smith won by a sizable margin over the Democrat in that race, Donzel Hughes, who, as we all know, had some, let's just say, personal issues that were brought to bear. But also, look, Cliff Smith was going door to door, ardent term limit supporter.
Yep.
Had helped with the petition, the whole 9 yards. Folks already knew him, knew what he stood for, know where he stands, and 62%. Let's move down to the District 5 race. We'll talk about the percentages and then we'll get into the details. So obviously, Miss Ruth lost, but just barely, 49% to 51%. And let's talk about the reasons for that after we go through the rest of these real quick. Of course, all 4 congressional amendment or constitutional amendments were defeated statewide. Here in Bossier, Constitutional Amendment 1 passed, 2 passed, Constitutional Amendment 3 failed and Constitutional Amendment 4 passed, but again, statewide, they all failed. Bossier City Proposition 1 of 3 for the restated and amended charter, failed pretty heftily, all things considered, 55% to 45%. And I would say, and we posted, that's pretty much a rebuke of the Charter Commission and that whole saga. Would you agree, Mr. Lowry?
Well, I want to draw a conclusion to this, and this is a conclusion that is drawn that is a positive conclusion. It's a positive to the electorate in Bossier City. So if you look at the Charter Commission, it was killed. The people voted against it, right? That means that they looked at it and they realized that this council, the current council, was trying to make some changes that, may or may not have been appropriate, and they killed it. They voted against it. They
Right.
were wise enough to recognize that they didn't appreciate what this council was trying to do. And it's not so much that as being the indicator of how wise the electorate in Bossier is, but when you drop down to the number 2 and the number 3, they pass those.
Right.
While they barely pass those, they did pass those. And we had a competing. We didn't campaign hard. We didn't campaign hard at all to defeat those. We did support supposedly we put out there lightly that vote no in March, yes in May, and
Right.
those are really, really close. I don't. Those were not just blown away, but they passed. And I think the reason that they passed, that a lot of people, I think, come to the conclusion that, you know what, well, even though, it's not the ideal thing that we want, it's something better than nothing. It is reform. While it's not the reform that we wanted, it is a measure of reform. And we recognize that it was bait for us for appeasement. You know what? We'll take that little bit of bait.
Yeah.
And I think that when you look at those in that, when you look at it from that perspective, I think that says that the electorate is smarter than what you think.
Yeah, I think you're 100% correct on that, and agree with your analysis. I mean, like you said, we had a campaign slogan of vote no in March, yes in May. But the truth is, it's okay that these term limits were voted in here in March, because we still do have the May election coming up. And that's where the term limits from the petitions, plural being 2 petitions, will finally be on the ballot. And I have a sneaking suspicion it'll be a low turnout, but they'll get voted in as well. And it's okay, because the only person left of the good old boys, even though he's a newcomer, is Vince Maggio. The rest of them are out.
Yeah, and Vince Maggio, he's a dead stick. I mean, he's a dead stick. I mean, because his people were out putting Lee Jeter signs up. How effective, to all of you in District 5, how effective is your guy going to be trying to get it? Not that look, he didn't try to get anything done the first time. I mean, by all means, y'all show me where he did anything more than 5 words in a sentence at any council meeting. He didn't articulate anything. He didn't fight. He didn't do anything. He's not going to do anything the next time, and he's going to be on an island this time. The worst thing that could happen for District 5 just happened.
Well, let's look at some numbers here. So if you notice, the District 5 turnout was 23%. It was the highest turnout of all the turnouts for this particular election in Bossier Parish. And the interesting thing about all this is, how many votes did he actually win by, Duke? Was it, my math is right, what, 38?
38 votes. That's
With
it.
a turnout of 23%, which is not great, but considering the rest of the turnout, it was the highest. He won by 38 votes. What did he outspin Ruth by? Like 20 times?
Well, we don't know the final number, and I got to tell you, it's not all over with yet. But the numbers will be trickling in. But he spent a buttload of money, and she didn't hardly spend any money. It was all based on the issues. Again, the lies. The lies. They say it's all lies. The lies that were put up against him. But yet, nobody will debate the lies. They won't debate the lies or the said to be lies or whatever. But the public, apparently, in consuming the information, come to the conclusion that, you know what, we're not going to give you 82% of the vote, arguably one of the highest percentages in the history of Bossier that you attained the first time you ran. Now you've got a record, and you barely squeaked by.
Well, look, like Cassie said, he won by the hair of his chinny chin chin. Now, so Val Baker says, can there be a recount? Technically, there can. Duke, correct me if I'm wrong. It's got to be done within, 3 days of the election. So the clock is ticking, right?
Yeah, so let me go on and wrap this up now. The time to have called for a recount would have been this afternoon at 4:30.
Okay.
That time has expired. There's not going to be a recount, and as I appreciate it, Ruth has went ahead and conceded. And Vince is going to be the guy. And now that this is settled and over with, I want to point out, I think, and this is just me talking, I believe, and this was again being a part of this, and I'm going to say this publicly. There's over 100 y'all, and I don't care if Vince Maggio is watching and all the rest of y'all, but I'm going to tell you, and Ruth may be mad at me for saying this, but in contemplating this, as a matter of principle, I believe that when a race is within a certain margin, that it should automatically be a recount. There should automatically be a recount. And you say, well, why do you believe that, Duke? And again, you guys can argue with me. I don't give a damn. Maggio people, y'all want to argue with me? By all means, put them in the comment. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I mean, there's nothing more than you calling me a liar that's going to hurt me more. By all means, challenge me. That said, if you have a short margin of victory, there should automatically be a recount. And it should be a matter of just housekeeping. Strictly, we should all want transparency. We should all want to ensure that there's no errors. We should all want no matter what. But here's the reality. The reality is that if somebody asks for a recount, automatically they say, well, you're a sore loser. Well, you just can't take the fact that you lost. And in this case right here, whether you Maggio people will admit it or not, you lost. You may be going to be sworn in July, but the reality is Maggio lost. He lost to a candidate that was given no chance. In fact, all you Bossier firemen, and I'm one of you, you didn't support Ruth Pope Johnson because you didn't think she had a chance in hell. The Bossier police, they were wise. They realized that she had a chance. They were wise. And you didn't see Vince advertising that. You saw him advertising the sheriff all day long. Well, why is that? Well, that's another subject entirely. But the fact of the matter is, if you call for a recount, it suggests that you believe there was something nefarious. Well, nobody thinks that there was anything nefarious, but by default in doing that, it suggests that you're saying that something fraudulent happened. And nobody thinks that. But there should automatically be a recount. There should.
Well,
And why do I say that, Rex? Why do I say that? Let me give you all of you an example. Do you all know, Rex, do you know? I know you know already because I already told you. But do you know when there was a recount done last?
probably the
It,
Caddo Parish Sheriff's race.
well, that's right, there was, but in Bossier, to all of y'all, would you appreciate the fact to know that there was a recount in Bossier City in a council race? And oh, by the way, it just so happened to be in the same district, District 5, where this race right here is. And oh, by the way, when that recount was done, the original count and what ultimately ended up being the count after the fact, would you believe that it changed the outcome of the election?
So was that, how long ago was that?
I don't know the years, but
Now you've
what I
intrigued me because I think we need to explain to people what an actual recount looks like in Louisiana right now. Because some people may think, oh, they're going to retabulate all the votes that were cast, and that is simply not true because they can't.
that's right.
Literally, they can't.
Yeah.
So
So
explain the recount process.
yeah, so what a recount would entail is recounting the mail-in ballots. And when I talk about the fact that there was a recount in the race between Tommy Harvey, um, when he was elected the first time, his opponent was on election day the winner. A recount was ordered because of how close it was. And after the recount, it was determined that Tommy Harvey was actually the winner. I had forgotten about that. And that came to my attention. And it happened to be in the same district that the Vince Maggio, Ruth Pope Johnston race was in. So my point is that I think that when you have races, automatically there should be a recount when the number that is won by in certain districts is within a certain parameter. No matter what, there should automatically be a recount. And it shouldn't be that if you, because all of it is politics. If Ruth was to say, hey, we're going to ask for a recount, and oh, by the way, there's this question out there, and I'm not trying to promote conspiracy theories because there is a logical explanation for it, but a lot of people, and I've seen some people make posts wondering how it is that in District 5, there's 3 precincts where there's 0 votes in those 3 precincts. That seems odd. But there's a logical explanation for that, and that is that the precincts change a little bit in one precinct of those 3 because I ran those traps. In one of those precincts, Larry Hannessy was the somebody just refreshed me. Larry Hannessy was the guy in the race against Harvey. Anyway, in those precincts, one of those precincts has a total of 40 voters.
Right.
It's plausible that none of those 40 people showed up to vote.
No.
In the other 2 precincts, as I appreciate it, there was somewhere to the tune of 10 people in one and maybe 14 people in the other. Again, it's plausible that none of those people showed up to vote. And so some people are saying like, well, why would you have a precinct that small in the first place? Well, it's convoluted and it's hard to explain of why they have to draw those districts that way. But as say, for example, on the north end of the city where the city limits up by Providence Classical Academy and the Brookshires up there, they have to expand the district out. that district crosses over into not only police jury districts. It's not a perfect science, but there's a certain amount of voters that are taken in and not taken in. But that's the justification. Those are things that are not immediately known at the conclusion of elections, but they're plausible questions that have to be resolved and figured out. There are countless other things, Rex, and I don't want to get into a debate with you, an argument with you, because I know you and I can go down this road on election integrity, but there are other things that are not transparent in our elections that when you consider having a recount that you have to analyze and consider. Cast vote records, that those are things that should be public, that I'm sorry, our election system makes an effort to prevent you, the public, from being able to see. They do everything in their power. Case in point, the Albert Gillray campaign for that newly created congressional district that was just delineated in the Supreme Court. The Albert Gillray campaign sought to get the cast vote records for every parish within that district. The Secretary of State's office quoted them a price. Oh, yeah, we can get it to you, but it'll cost you $75,000. Now, I'm just curious. Why would y'all think a bunch of Excel spreadsheets or PDF documents, why do you think it would cost $75,000 for someone in the Secretary of State's office to collect those and then click the mouse a couple of times to transmit them to you digitally? Why would that cost $75,000, Rex?
Why it involves ice cubes. Did you know that?
I didn't know. I'm going to
It's
learn something here.
That's right. It involves ice cubes. It is because it has a chilling effect on getting the access to that data.
See, I can wrap my head around that. So, if there is not everything is meant to be transparent, then that leaves doubt in the electorate on every election. And
Well,
if
let me
if
throw
you
in another lack of transparency real quick before you finish with that thought, because most people don't realize, I don't know if y'all caught it, the only recount that can actually be performed is the mail-in ballots, because otherwise they just have the machines spit out the counts again, which the Board of Election Supervisors has already signed off on. There is no recount of the ballots cast in early voting or in regular voting period, because it will literally, the machines will spit out the exact same numbers. That's why they do recounts of the mail-in ballots only. That's not conspiracy theory. That is a fact.
that's right, and the only way, so when you do the early voting, you do the early voting on the quote unquote Dominion machines, and when you do early voting on those, there are what's called log files created, log files where the the time and date on which machine that a vote was cast and what vote was cast is logged and is in the form of, say, like a spreadsheet that is accessible. But when you go to your regular voting place on these old DRE machines, that's not the case. That's not the way it's done. So, you know, you're being prevented from accessing the information of what is done on these early voting machines, in essence.
Well, and so one other slight point, the only way, and this isn't really a way, is you would have to go back through the signature books, because when you go vote, early voting or same day voting, you have to sign in, present your driver's license or ID or whatever. And so you arguably could count the number of signatures of people in those manual entry books versus what the machine is showing. And there should be a match in the total number of voters. That still wouldn't tell you whether the count for either candidate or which proposition or whatever was correct. But that's really the only slight audit trail that there is, and that's not an audit trail. I would argue, and I've said this before, the only way to completely get around this is to do away with the secret ballot. I hate to say it, that's really the only way I see it, except for the paper trail that Duke, I know you're completely on board with. I'm partially on board with, and a lot of other people are.
Yeah, I'm 100%. I mean, because I've seen it and I know a lot of people can't wrap their head around it. I know that I've seen it happen. I've seen the process where you can hand mark paper ballot counted by a human in one day. I know that it can be done. I've seen it done, but the majority of the public and people, they can't wrap their head around it. They don't want to commit the time to educate themselves on it and acknowledge that it is even possible, and especially and I appreciate people like yourself that are techies. You're like, okay, I mean, this is stupid to have to do this because we've got technology that we can do this to where we can make this easier on ourselves and it can be transparent. But the problem is we've got people who don't want things to be transparent. Case in point. Okay, I'll give you a perfect example. And for all of you watching, and I see LeCag, I mean, I know that's Chris and them watching, and what they're posting is correct. And there was one other post that somebody put right before him. My screen just rolled up. Jeff Sadow was talking about signs and vacant lots. I want to definitely come back to that and talk about Marlon Brown. But case in point. So, one, I was appointed by the governor to be the governor's appointee on the Board of Election Supervisors of Bossier Parish. I took that appointment, then I resigned it when Kara had her problem and we had to have surgery, and good guy in there now and taking that position, glad he's in there. But as the chairman of the Bossier Parish Republican Executive Committee, each major party has an appointee that is on that board. Well, the chairman is typically the person that does that. Well, in Bossier Parish, I defer that to someone else, and Robert Wright fills in my stead, but that doesn't mean that I go up there. But what I would tell you, I completely understand the process. So my question to you, the public, when ballots are adjudicated, meaning that somebody filled out a ballot, and people do this. I'm going to give you all some examples. They fill out on the proposition, do you support Constitutional Amendment 1, yes or no? There are literally people that fill out both yes and no. So what happens is those are run through the tabulator, and the tabulator picks up that there is a error within that ballot. It picks up that some jackwagon filled out yes and no. So that's flagged. The Board of Election Supervisors then look at that and they try to delineate what the intent of the voter was on that issue. Did they mean to do yes? Did they mean to do no? If they just filled out both boxes, you can't really tell what they meant. But what if they filled out yes, they filled out no, but then they put a big X in no? What do you think their intent was there? Seems to me, I would think that means their intent was they accidentally filled out no, they put a big X in it. That meant that's not what they wanted. Then they circled in yes, that's the one that they wanted. That's what I personally think was their intent. You may have a different opinion. But that's what the verification process entails.
Right. And that's, I mentioned it before, and Duke, you've been, of course, part of the process. So have I, when you get sequestered in the courthouse. And I will say that is a public process. So if any of you are doubting what we say, you are more than welcome to call the registrar of voters office, go up there during this process. You just have to be sequestered in until the polls close, and you can watch this whole process and observe it yourself. No phones or communication devices allowed. You're sequestered in there, but it is a public process. I've talked to Stephanie myself about this, and should people come up there, and she says, oh, absolutely, they should come see the process if they have any doubt about how it happens.
So Rex, on what I just described, here's the rub for people. What you have to understand is they take all those ballots, they run them through the tabulator in a batch. The batch may be 100, it may be 200, it may be 3, 4, whatever. It could be any variance of number, but they run batches, and then they'll run that batch through again, and they'll kind of verify that the total number of ballots that run through are the same, and they kind of compare the counts, right?
Right.
But when they do those batches, here's the rub. They save them all as one big PDF document, right?
Right.
So and there's you can't tell who the voter is on those documents. So my question is, those PDFs, why can't the public see those?
Yeah, I would agree.
What?
Well,
but you can't. Why is it that you can't have access to that batch, go through them, count the votes, and if you so want to go through them and count them, why can't you do that?
Yeah, well, again, I would encourage people, um, like we say on the show, go to council meetings, go to police jury meetings, go to school board meetings, go during an election cycle and watch the votes be tabulated. Go and observe. That doesn't mean you go up there and disturb or you ask a ton of questions. Go to observe and watch the process. It is a public. Look, the truth is, the Board of Election Supervisors meetings where they select the commissioners in charge and all that, literally they do that with ping pong balls.
It'll happen Thursday.
That is an open meeting as well. You can go and observe that process if you have any question about how these commissioners, the people at the polls, in charge of the various locations, how they are chosen. Go watch them choose them by ping pong balls.
I see the number of people dropping off, and y'all think
They're
we're done
getting
talking.
bored.
Yeah, they're like, oh, y'all are talking about that boring stuff that I don't care about, and they think we're done talking about Bossier City and,
Yeah.
and the
No,
other
we
stuff.
still got to talk about settling lawsuit and things moving forward. So,
Yeah.
all right, I want to share one other thing real quick because I think it was I can't see it now, but somebody asked about what the margin of victory for Vince was last election. So I want to show that real quick. So this is March 20th, 2021. Vince won 80. Let me see if I can get it down there. Why is my screen not showing? Anyway, Vince won by 82% to 18%. So you can go to the Saturday, March the 20th and choose that. Let me see. Here we go, down here at the bottom. Just for comparison, this was Vince's margin of victory with a 30% turnout. That was his margin of victory back in 2021. Again, let's fast forward to this past weekend. Let me do the parishes here. And look at his margin of victory. Again, 38 votes with a 23% turnout. So you have no mandate, Vince. You almost lost your seat. Almost. Your mandate is You need to be an effective councilman and quit being the voting stooge for the good old boys. Actually do something on the council for your district. That's the lesson and takeaway for Vince.
Yeah, this actually, he's got a chance. He has an opportunity to make up for what he did the first 4 years. I doubt very seriously he sees it that way. In fact, I talked to somebody that's a very close personal friend to him that talks every day, and they said he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it at all. And me personally, I would hope that he takes it with humility. He recognizes that the people see that, he sat up there. He didn't open his mouth. He just rubber stamped things. He was a cardboard candidate. That's all of it that he was.
Yeah.
And look, you know what makes Trump real is the fact that he's real. He just gets up there, he says what he thinks, and if he screws up, he doesn't give a damn. He's just living. He's being real. That's what people want out of their candidates. That's why Brian Hammonds is so popular, is because he gets up there, and if he thinks it stinks, you know what? He says, this smells like bullshit. And he says it.
The bull in the china closet, as we affectionately call him.
That's what people appreciate. That's what people want. They want real. They don't want fake. They want real. Be real, Vince. You got a chance to make up here.
So speaking of Hammonds and being real and Vince, because this literally is in his district, a quick review. The city council meeting last week, Brian Hammonds brought up a point while Ruttenbuck was standing up there at the podium and wanted to know when a lot of the other businesses in Bossier were going to get their free parking lots, and how did all this get paid for and transpire. There was some dialogue with Jacobs. He gave his BS response, and a lot of people are very upset about this. Well, one of those folks is John Settle. His office is right there in the mix of all this. And he sent a letter to Tommy Chandler. We've got it posted on the Bossier Watch Facebook page. And he says in the last 6 months, he's got water spots on the carpet in his office. This was after he had it professionally cleaned, and it appears that they might be the result of a cracked slab. This is the opinion of Ramjack. This cannot be determined until the carpet's removed. So he's emailed risk management on the issue and consulted legal counsel, and he is prepared to commence litigation. Pretty much he's waiting on them. He's given them till April the 15th. He says, quote, I need a response by high noon on that date, or I'm going to proceed with litigation. Hammonds was the soothsayer, and he didn't even know it because he predicted that other people might sue over this and want their parking lots repaired. And again, those, we're not blaming Scott's Audio or any of the rest of the businesses right there. But here is a public information request sent by John Settle today. He's requesting the construction contracts for phase 2 of the carriageway with J.B. James Construction, copies of insurance binders provided by J.B. James Construction to the city of Bossier City for carriageway phase 2, and copies of the bonds provided by J.B. James Construction for phase 2. And he says, and I quote, I need these ASAP. He's got to get ready for his high noon showdown on April the 15th.
I think we may have some of that. And John, if you want to reach out to us, for a sum like, Hal would do, I could probably find that pretty quick and get it to you.
So,
or maybe you could just call Hal.
Yeah, just call Hal and see if Hal has them. So the parking
Yeah.
lot fiasco is not over by any stretch of the imagination. Settle's threatening a lawsuit, and this is not going away. And by the way, where's Vince on this?
Well, I hadn't heard nothing from Vince in a long time. I mean, it's eerily quiet from the Vince Maggio campaign.
Yes, it is.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. All right. So that takes care of Settle and the lawsuit, and that leaves us with moving forward. Where do we go from here? I'll be so glad when the new council persons get seated in July, and hopefully the city council. That doesn't mean we're going to agree with all of them all of the time. And like we say, we're still going to hold their feet to the fire too. But hopefully they'll have a little better attitudes towards the public and the expenditure of public tax dollars. And maybe, just maybe, Duke, you and I can A, go on vacation and go fishing or hunting or whatever. Or B, we can actually turn our attention to the police jury and then maybe the school board and all that sort of thing. What say you?
I'm just going to go catch crawfish. And if anybody wants any crawfish between now and the end of crawfish season, by all means, you're more than welcome to call me. Because it damn sure ain't because there's home loans being closed. And that's not the case. People ain't buying houses. So the best thing I can do, there's no vacations in my cards. It's catching crawfish.
You know
So
what? You and I need to go fishing. I've kind of got the boat all shinied up and buffed and polished and all that good stuff. And we just
you
need to
know,
go to the lake one day.
you know what? It's kind of like golfing. You know what I found out about golfing?
What's
I
that?
found out that I enjoyed sitting in the golf cart, drinking a beer, watching whoever I was with hit the golf ball and be mad. I found more entertainment out of doing that. And you know what? I think I could enjoy just riding in the boat, sitting back, drinking a beer, watching you catch fish. And oh, yeah, that's a good one. Good job. You jacked his jaw.
We seriously, we in all the years we've known each other, we have not done that yet. We are
Oh,
going to do that this year, without a doubt.
you, you do know I used to fish, right?
Yeah, I have a sneaking
I,
suspicion you can still fish.
I was very country, and I don't know if you'd be prepared for my fishing.
Hey, just getting out there, like you said, just getting out there on the water, turn the phones off, turn the social media off, and go have a good time.
Yeah, I am
That's
into
what we need.
that. I am into that.
All right, so that's pretty much really all I've got. I mean, anything else you want to review? Look, folks, next week or two, if the shows are a little bit shorter or if we decide to go fishing one Tuesday or something like that, don't be shocked. Doesn't mean that we're necessarily quitting, but we've got to have a little bit of a reset period after the last month or two, couple of months, last 6 months, last few years. So we're not quitting the show or anything like that. But you ever seen the movie The Green Mile?
Oh yeah,
You remember John Coffey, the big old boy in The Green Mile.
yeah,
You know what
boss.
he says, I was tired, boss.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Good night.
we're a little tired. We're out of here for tonight. We appreciate everybody watching. Like, share, send us proton mails if you want to be anonymous. Do all that sort of thing. We will probably see you next Tuesday night or Wednesday or Thursday or I don't know, whenever it'll be. We're done.
Good night.
Good night.